because you can get a prepaid one. Just as you're just checking your credit cards, it's not a big issue. Oh, and my favorite one is chairs. How much do you think a chair costs to borrow for 3 days? You're just borrowing it. $50. $50, yes.
Yeah.
An artist wanted an easel, and I almost laughed at that one. An artist wanted an easel, and they said, oh yeah, we can rent you one for $70. And he's like, I'm going to Office Depot, I'll buy one. So, but you remember, this convention hall is used to the mega multi-million-dollar conventions coming in. You know, we also had labor. That was one of our issues last year. They're real big on getting paid. And we incorporated this year power and labor just because it was easier on us to. Oh,
yes,
no.
we incorporated
See, we didn't
power.
include power in here. But to us, it was easier to incorporate it into our cost and into your booth cost rather than you have to face it when you checked in. And that's $80 for cart service. So if you show up in your car, it's like, okay, we want $80 or you can't unload. But we paid for that for all the booths this year except for the artists because most artists just carry their stuff in.
Yeah, very, very painfully, but.
And also, this is an important one. When we say it's personal vehicles, don't show up in a U-Haul. I emailed a dozen times. We had a vendor show up with 15,000 pounds, and they wanted to charge by the pound. He was like, well, it's not a personal vehicle. And I was like, you know what? You talk to Brandon, the boss, because he does contracts. But it was literally one of those, you showed up in a commercial vehicle. I don't care if you bought it or you rented it. We told you personal vehicles were covered. Anything above that was your problem. Sorry. So, what else we got? If you don't.
So basically to wrap this slide up, yeah, pretty scary stuff, but if you know it well in advance, you can mitigate those things by say, okay, well, we'll just say that we're cash only today, and we might lose a few sales, but we won't have to worry about that being a cost. Bringing your own folding chair.
Yes. You can bring your table, you can bring an extra chair.
We actually needed a little extra space at our table, so we brought these little collapsible bins that actually kind of extended the table inward a little bit, so we had a little bit of extra space. So think of some ways you can save yourself some grief and sort of avoid these costs.
And part of that is being aware of what space that you have available, because when you are initially signing up for the specific table that you want, they'll send you the actual dimensions of the table space and the space of the booth overall, so you can use that to plan around what you're going to bring.
Oh, one more thing though. These prices change year to year. And we usually don't find out these prices until about July-ish, because we haven't finalized the contract until that point. So what I would tell you is think what I've told you, but expect a little bit more or less depending on how we negotiate next year. So, you know, we're looking at ways of trying to just package everything in once. And if you see a booth price next year and you say, God, that's expensive, then see what we're also including. And then think about it that way, because we'll get a deal if we purchase it all at once. But if we go, well, they don't need all that Wi-Fi, so we don't get it. And then you're like, well, I needed it. And now it's like, oh man, I got to pay the full price. So that's why, like this year, the booth price went up because we actually covered the moving cost. We covered the electricity cost. All right.
Okay.
Okay, this is the fun part. This is okay. You've made it past the gauntlet of costs, and you're in the vendor hall.
The staff Illuminati have accepted you into their cabal.
Exactly. So now what? So you're there. You've got this amazing artwork. You think, oh man, I am ready. I am so good. My art's so good. So this is what it looks like alone in the vendor hall. You're the only, everyone else didn't show up. You're the only game in town. Now, this is you with 182 other booths. So, any questions? Not at the end. So what we're trying to illustrate here is there is a big difference between the quality of your art and the objectivity of that and just the amount of sheer competition you will have in the vendor hall. We had instances where we didn't sell a certain print or a certain artwork, and you're thinking, man, is it something I did wrong? Is my art bad? Did they make a mistake in letting me in here? you're competing with that many, and that will shift. The year before this one, it was like 280 something people, and they saw that was an issue and made it smaller this year, which I think has benefited everybody.
Yes, very many angry emails.
Yeah. So, although I can't say I approve of your Lego method of arranging the vendor hall, I don't think it flows very well.
My flow this year was perfect. I talked to every vendor, and no matter what aisle they were in, they had traffic, because I made it so you could not beeline right through it.
There you
That
go.
was the plan. It was like, okay, I start walking in, there's too many people let me check this aisle, and then you go down that aisle and see a new product. Then you're like, well, let me go back up this aisle now, and it was, where's the exits at? And I'm like, surprise, you can't find them. This is the
how
true
we got
story,
you.
though. If you guys notice, there's no signage hanging up in that vendor hall, because it's extremely expensive to get a union guy to go up and hang one sign, like at a cost of about $500 per sign. Thank you.
It's very, very
But
chill.
yeah, that's why you noticed there was like one hanging sign, and that was because the decorator put it there. But
But
yeah,
that's
it's literally expensive to hang a sign in this hall.
But that's something else to think about, is that if, you're in a spot, like, they got the flow in this year.
They
but
got their funky flow.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that can affect your business, is where you're positioned, what type of booth you're in, and who you're next to. That can either help or hurt you. It's not it's not you necessarily. Next slide. Oh, this one. This is my favoritist part of the presentation. This is the resiliency part of the presentation. One of the big things you need to understand about vending or displaying your product in any measure is that, what was the phrase? Opinions are like best ponies. Everybody has one. And you can come into conflict. This illustration is a metaphor of what actually happened to me one year. I had a mother and her daughter come to my booth, and of course I know that the daughter's like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, and how children can be. And the mother looked at my artwork with a bit of a sneer and said, oh, sweetheart, you can draw better than that. And she said this to a 20-something woman who's been drawing since she was in the first grade, and that her 9-year-old daughter could draw better than me. So, there are people that don't realize that your stuff isn't bought at Walmart and you're just hawking it, like that some people really put some effort and some energy and some of their own personal emotions into their artwork. So you kind of have to know yourself very well and be able to insulate yourself from those sort of things. You can deal with aggressive customers, you can deal with judgmental customers, and if that's going to be something that you're not adept to handle, you might want to reevaluate, say, well, maybe I want to vend artwork, but my brother or sister is really, really tough. Maybe I should have them in my place, and I'll just teach them what I did. They can be able to talk about it with people, and they'll be able to sell it for me. Or there are several vendors here that I think live cross-country and couldn't be here, so they asked some local friends or hired some people locally to vend for them as well. That's going kind of into the more expensive territory. But if you're dead to rights and you want to vend, but you're like, I don't know if I can handle someone saying my art is bad, or what I call the look, which is when someone comes by your booth and goes, and then walks right away. You get that even if the next person is like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I need all of your artwork right now. It's completely person to person.
Depending on how you want things set up. Most often I see it's either the artists themselves at a table, greeting people personally, conducting the business personally, or it's an artist who has one or multiple pointsmen and or women, conducting business for them while they are otherwise occupied, because I know a lot of these people are creative people. They, even if a business setting, they want to be creative, so they might have a sketch pad in the back and let the other people do all the hollering, as it were, for them.
Okay, commerce is magic, friendship too. This is another big point in the vendor hall. This is not a pony eat pony scenario. It's very behoove you to meet and greet your neighbors, because there are situations where certain times in the vendor hall can be very crazy. You might not even get a chance to eat. Like, forget about lunch. I don't even know what that is. It's a word that's escaped my vocabulary. But if you're in a situation where you do not have someone with you that can help, or they're away shopping, or you're taking turns minding the booth, making a friend next door can be a lifesaver, because that day where you forget your sandwich and you're dying of thirst, your neighbor can be like, hey, I got a water bottle, I got an extra, have one. That is very much something I would like to hammer home, especially if you're kind of all in it together. There is sort of little small pockets of vendor clickiness happening, because you're like, oh, we're in it together. Let's all do a good job. Let's all sell some stuff.
Don't do it. Please don't do it. Because in your application next year, it'll say, put me next to her again. She was great.
Well, they can't guarantee that, but guess what? That means you get to make new friends.
That's true. Mm-hmm. But you do get a lot of, put me next to this person and this person. And then, hey, did you ask the person what booth they were trying to get into? Where they wanted to be on the other side of the room because the air conditioning was too cold last year?
Yeah. But
even her friends are like halfway up the aisle. And she's like, can you put us near each other? I'm like, you're nowhere near each other.
And we were like, oop, too bad.
Yeah.
Like that can't be helped when they're playing vendor Legos, as it were.
I call it
or
Tetris.
Vector Tetris, or
my
Vector
Tetris game.
Vector set.
Yes. And that's the other thing. You're not the only one who's stressed. It's stressful vending, because it's not just you show up with your book and chill, unless if that's how it is for you, great.
We have those vendors. They're the ones I call the head down.
Yes, that's very important not to do that. But I think
Yes.
we'll get to that in a later slide.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about being a rainbow dash and not a lightning dust. It's about healthy competition's pretty fun. It's you're both trying to sell stuff. You both want to be on the Wonderbolts vendor hall, but it's not good to sabotage or talk bad or otherwise try to hurt the other person next to you. It's not good. It's not becoming. And it's not what this fandom is about. So those are just things to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can be observant of the other vendors around you. Take note of what they're doing, how they differ from you, and make note of, hey, maybe I want to change this up next time around.
And I know on my first year vending here, I was next to my buddy Haluk Assign, and he actually helped me out a lot, because I didn't really know quite yet what to do, what people wanted to see, how to arrange things. And I was in costume that year as well. I was Queen Chrysalis. And a lot of people wanted to take my photograph. So he said, you, come here. When they ask to take your photograph, tell them, sure, so long as you look at my stuff, or sure, so long as you take my business card. That went completely over my head. I didn't even think to do that. But because I had a good rapport with my next door neighbor, he helped me out. So those are some things to keep in mind. Don't be a starving artist. This goes back to the, what, lunch? What's lunch? Bring a buddy. It's always better to vend with somebody else, especially since there are, your vendor badge is the standard cost, but you can get an extra vendor badge for a little less money. So if you have a friend that maybe really wants to help you and maybe is short on cash and can't otherwise come to the convention, bring your buddy. Let them help at your table.
Actually, each booth includes 2. And if you buy multiple booths, you just keep getting multiples of 2. So the bigger booths came with 8. Although we did have one vendor who needed 14 badges. I'm sure you can all guess which one that one was.
But
yeah.
It's not safe to go alone.
Yes, and
Take this.
Yes. And your actual vendor badge gives you all the benefits of a regular badge at less cost. This year it was $50 rather than the normal, whatever the normal price is.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, you want to come help me out in a booth and enjoy BronyCon at the same time? $50.
Exactly. Don't forget to feed and water yourself. Don't be an Ori. I forgot what food was today, but thankfully I found some. But yes, it's always good to take breaks. That's always good to have a co-host, as my other panel would say. it's always good to have your buddy. So that way, you know, hey, man, I am really hurting right now. I just need to sit down and have some water. Got you covered. I'll stand up and I'll holler at people. You know, and this is supposed to be a fun, enriching endeavor. You shouldn't be starving yourself of trying to push things and whatnot. So always have yourself covered.
Yeah, this ties into a couple of previous points. First off, bring a buddy. If you can easily and competently manage a table by yourself, if you have your partner, buddy, what have you with you, and you are starving, say, hey, could you run over to the food place over there and grab me something and come right back?
Don't
And
do
that would
that.
be completely reasonable.
Don't do that. There goes your profit margin.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Have you seen how much a burger cost?
Oh, true.
Okay, well, ask your very, very gentle, kind, loving friend to run to Noodles and Company and get you something.
Okay, and if that fails you, then prepare beforehand by bringing a cooler or a box of snacks, what have you. As we mentioned, water before. Bring extra. Be sure to bring extra because you never know if you might need one. You never know if you might need to give one to someone else. Be kind to the fursuiters. Have water on hand.
And also, we usually have water ourselves, so if you need some, don't be afraid to ask. Say, my staff's always on the floor. Say, you don't have to have a bottle of water. We've got it upstairs. We keep it just in case. I mean, last year we were like we had a little room we set up where you guys could come and get some. But this year it was like, no, if somebody says, can you get water down to booth 110 or something? Yeah, we'll send some down. It's not a problem. You know, we buy it just in case we need it. And if somebody says, I need water and I can't get away from the booth, we'll give you a bottle.
And very last point on this, if you're a changeling, don't invite a homicidal earth pony to be your buddy, no matter how much you wish it were different.
Oh, last point is, even though you are, as a vendor, coming to vend at the convention, be sure to schedule some time away from your booth. You don't want the vendor hall to rule your con experience, if it's at all possible. So if, of course, the BronyCon staffers on the website will have a list of events, a list of autograph signings, long before the actual convention comes around. So if you need to or want to, you can say, schedule some time to step away to do those things and have your buddy and partner man the table in the meantime. You don't have to be glued to your table.
Okay, this is some people in the room's favorite section. You need dough to make bread. You really, it's extremely difficult to do this without adequate help. As I have learned this year, we brought in a very good friend who's also very proficient at the Excels and the maths. When you're in the heat, in the heat of people coming in, hopefully, and asking for your stuff, it's always good to keep track of what you sell, what you might have discounted, what offers. I know certain booths that are not named in this presentation. We're offering deals, so we have to keep track of, how much we sold something for. So that way, at the end of the day, we're like, we're missing all this money. With these things were at a set price. Why? Where did it go? So you need to keep track of those things, however you can, and you have to keep track of what costs actually go into the vending. Hotel rooms, how you're going to get there, food, and remember, don't go to Noodles, don't go here.
You'll notice most people are eating Subway. They send their friend to Subway because it's a lot cheaper.
Or organic protein bars. That's what I've been living off of this weekend. But costs were reasonable. Look for deals on hotel rooms. Some hotels will offer military discounts or other discounts or accommodations. Room with multiple people. There's no sense in having getting a room and not sharing the burden as far as that goes. That can help bring your costs down as well. As far as food, try to bring your own food. Try to pick a room with a refrigerator. Some hotels will have rooms with hot plates that can help as well, like if you want to heat something up. It's always better to try and bring the food than buy the food while you're here. Price your merchandise competitively while aiming to break even. This can be very tricky because it's very, very difficult to tell what you think something is worth versus what someone else will pay for it. Huge gulf, like Grand Canyon-sized gulf between those two things. I had an experience with a vendor who literally sold nothing because this vendor priced everything to where they thought it deserved to be sold for. However, people looked at it and went, huh? No, goodbye. And they were quite devastated by that, but that kind of goes to the emotional attachment issue to your artwork or products. But it's knowing where that separation comes from and setting a price you are comfortable with, while at the same time, accommodating others. And that's where things like deals or incentives and things like that can come into play to sort of help that along. If there's particular items you want to incentivize people buying at maybe a higher cost because it's, more quality, more work, more expensive materials, maybe offer something inexpensive to go with it. Well, if you purchase this, you get a free cheap thing. So that's one way to kind of sweeten the pot for potential buyers as well. Keep proper records. They're calling him.
I can't even get 5 minutes away.
Well, it's because they're a very hardworking vendor staff.
Turn it back down.
But keep proper records for both yourself and your customers. It's always really, really cruddy when you're like, oh yes, I have that item in another size, let me go get it. And it turns out you don't have it because you sold it at another convention or you sold it last year. And you kind of have to backpedal a little bit and be like, actually, sorry, we didn't. The other way that comes into play is knowing what sold well the year before will help you kind of figure out what to bring back the next year. Or at another convention if you attempt to sell at another convention. That could also be tricky, but there are online resources that can help you with that. I know, who here has ever seen, touched, or used DeviantArt? Yes. As annoying as DeviantArt can sometimes be, they actually provide really viable metrics for me to know, hey, this thing that I posted got 1,000 views, but only 5 people favorited it. Why is that? Maybe because they saw it and that view is sort of the same as someone breezes by your table and goes, and then walks away. But I look at something else and this other thing got 100 views, but wow, it's got 99 favorites. So it's trying to gauge that. And also, if you have vended before, keeping track of, oh wow, this item completely sold out within the first hour on Friday. So might want to get that back next year.
Mm-hmm. And proper records are also applicable to, of course, financially. So if you have the option to, offer your customers a receipt. And if they don't want them, you don't need to give them one. But if they do, be sure that you can give one to them.
Now, actually, I have a point about receipts, because we had an issue today.
Oh?
Short story is, customer wanted a drawing, told them what they wanted, got a sketch. They wanted a color drawing. Asked for a receipt after the fact, and they wrote them a receipt for a sketch. Then they come to me saying, can you do something about this? I'm like, yeah, you got a receipt for a sketch, and there's a sketch. So especially if it's something you're creating, specify, I'm gonna make you a sketch, such that. That way when it comes back and they say, can you do something on my part? I'm like, they gave you a receipt for a sketch. There's nothing I can do. I mean, she thought, oh, I have a receipt. I'm like, yeah, but the receipt backs up what you've got. So,
Yes.
And as far as the pricing, this is the one I always have an issue with. I won't say it to the customers out there because I'm there for them, but if you've got a pin that's this big and you want to sell it for $2 and your neighbor has the same pin that's for $1, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to go, look, honey, you can buy that one, you get 2 of those for $1. So, at least look at your neighbor and see what they're selling at. Because you get a lot of people like, well, my buttons are worth $5 because Mart's good. It might be good, but to the person who has $2 in their pocket, they just wanted a pin. So that was that one. That's fine.
Oh yes, be presentable. This is all that we've been saying this whole time, is that, you know, a good first impression really goes a long way. And when we say be presentable, make sure that the key things you'd like to show off, your best foot forward, your nicest product is right in plain view so that your customers can get a quick look at it. The other part of being presentable is face-to-face time. Eye contact is very important. Saying hello, saying welcome, being welcoming, giving them some measure of greeting. Nothing turns a customer off more than,
Yes, the art drawer.
because they're assuming you're too busy for them, or you're working on something else. So that's another thing when you're thinking of working yourself up to get to vend, if you're a shyer person, is that you do have to put on your happy, kind of optimistic, very, welcome to my booth. I invite you to come look at my things.
There's also another thing. If you notice, a lot of the major booths, they don't have chairs. They actually ask us to take them out the first night, because they actually do better business by standing all day. So that's why I like Yaya Han I was talking to today, and like all the major ones, they have chairs. They'll all be in the center, and they'll just rotate who sits in it. But most of their staff stands the whole day. If you ever gone by the Sugar Cube corner, that guy, I swear he's a robot. He never moves. He's at that screen all day, back and forth, standing the entire day.
Yeah, and I noticed that too, because I think it's more of a dynamic of, I am ready to
Yes.
get you whatever you want. I am standing here at the ready.
And you're not bothering me by coming up and asking a question.
Exactly. So it's body language. It's also verbal cues as well. Those are a little easier to handle for some, but it's very important you give them some verbal communication when it's appropriate. So if someone's coming by and they don't really look all that interested, you don't need to go into your whole spiel necessarily. But if someone's really looking at your stuff, say hello, feel free to take a look. If you have any questions on prices, please let me know. Just give them a little something and try and gauge, how much information they might want, and allow them to ask you the questions. That shows they're interested in that. That can broker your way to a sale more readily than just sitting and drawing.
Mm-hmm. And first impressions also include first impressions visually of you yourself. As you can see, let's see, both Ori and I are decked out in cosplay today. And that's another very relatively easy way to grab people's attention, because when you're going through the vendor hall for the first time and you're overwhelmed by the number of individual vendors or companies that are present, seeing somebody who's in cosplay might trigger something in you, saying, this isn't just some guy who's trying to hawk somebody else's wares. This is a one of us moment.
Exactly. Be friendly and courteous. Do your best to have a professional attitude. We recognize not everyone is professional, but by professional we mean shower. Then wear nice clothing. Goes back to being presentable. And the biggest takeaway, if you forget everything else in this panel, you mind wipe, it's gone. Business cards. Business cards.
Business cards.
Yes. You need those. That is your lifeblood. That is how you get that person who I kind of like your stuff. Well, no pressure. If you'd like to take my business card, take a look at my online portfolio. 9.5 times out of 10, you'll get that business card out, and you might get someone looking at your stuff. And always stay on your schedule and communicate with the vendor staff.
Yes, please.
All right, so now that we've gone over a lot of the preparation stuff and the in-the-moment stuff, here are some general pros and cons of vending at cons. I'll only go through a few of them because a lot of them are in the inverse of each other. When you're vending, you can really earn a good sense of accomplishment by getting that face-to-face reaction, that face-to-face acknowledgement of you and your art/product. Of course, you can earn some money, but on the other hand, if you aren't prepared, if you aren't looking at trends properly, if you come into it and your stuff isn't priced properly, you can wind up going into the hole financially. This is all going back to the initial preparation of how much do I have to budget towards this specific event. Let's see, if you're a natural extrovert, it's going to be awesome because you get lots of face time with people, like-minded people who are interested in you and your stuff. But if you're more introverted, it might be a more stressful experience having to deal with as many people that come through the vendor call as they do. So there are a lot of different things to think about and factor in to how you want your personal experience to go. Let's see. And in the retrospective, looking back on what happened with the convention, how you did, what I recommend is to paint with broad strokes, as it were. First thing foremost, focus on constructive criticism. Anybody can be a critic, but it takes a special individual to really compose their thoughts in a way that is focused on getting you to the next level. And you really have to do that for yourself in the aftermath of the convention. Because whether you're upset or ecstatic, you've really got to be looking forward to the next step. Part of that is taking note of what was in your control and what was not. If you got placed poorly, that was out of your control. If you got to Baltimore late and didn't have enough time to set up properly, that's on you. So there are various factors that go into, all the elements that make up your own personal experience here. And always be optimistic looking forward.
Yeah, and to the point of that incident with the mother, at first I was totally upset. I was freaking out. I was like, are you kidding me? But then I stopped and thought about it, and I'm like, how many times has my mother, and she has done it in the BronyCon vendor hall, I love her to death, but I could have screamed. What did we do when I went to someone else's table and saw something adorable and I wanted it? As a grown adult, my mom turned to me in front of the person at the booth and said, oh, you can draw that. So it's the circle of life and karma and all that good stuff coming back, and it just kind of made me stop and realize, yeah, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's not my work's not good or any of that. It's just that is just the situation that you get in with different people and opinions and whatnot.
Okay. All right. So next step is keeping your harmony. This is all PostCon items of note. First and foremost, make sure your financial ducks in a row. You should have made a comprehensive list of the costs that go into vending before you actually vend, and then afterwards you should have a comprehensive list of all the transactions that you have to make at the con itself, and see where you stand up, whether you're in the red, you broke even, or you had that little icing on the cake of profit. Part of that is, as we mentioned before, be sure to mail back Maryland whatever you owe them in terms of sales tax, because they will need that.
They will find you.
And of course, be sure to thank everyone that was involved and yourself for good measure, because you put in a lot of hard work for however long it took in order to get your product ready, get yourself ready, and then go out and actually do the thing. And of course, this is, no man is an island, no pony is an archipelago, and you're going to be working with other people, your booth buddy, and whatever other staff or friends that you might have on hand. Make sure that they are acknowledged. Make sure that they know they are appreciated.
And remember to stay active, stay healthy, but pace yourself. If you've vended and it's taken everything out of you, maybe think about next year, maybe not the con that's next month. So that's all I had for this. I think we're on to the last slide.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Let's see, a few other notes about staying active. Even if you are, totally wiped, if you're totally out of it after the convention, it's taken everything out of you. Make sure people know that, because you have just, conducted business with a lot of people. You've put your name out there. People are going to be eager to see what you have going forward, and if they have no inkling of what you are doing going forward, they're quickly going to lose interest. So even if you are totally wiped, just go up on DeviantArt, go up on Facebook and say, hey, BronyCon was awesome, I'm totally wiped. See you guys in a month. And that's, at least people will know. They'll have a frame of reference as to what your schedule is like and what to expect from you.
Okay, the fun part. Questions.
Yay.
Okay, we got a roving person with a mic somewhere. Let's number 603.
Oh, hi. Well, actually, I just want to make a comment on the whole business card thing.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, saw the BronyCon 14 was business cards. But for me, it was, hey, I got an Octavius card from a vendor, and he had given me his business card, which I kept. About 3 months later, I remembered, hey, wait a minute, I asked this guy a question about, he's got matching hats and scarves, but he doesn't have one for Octavius. I couldn't remember his name. Went back to the business cards, which were still in the bag. Hey, it's double helix. Okay, found one DeviantArt, he sent me the Etsy page, we brokered a deal, sent me the finished work about 3 weeks later.
And to that point, if you don't make a sale at the convention, you bet dollars to donuts you'll start getting emails or communications from people saying, hey, I saw this XYZ thing at your booth, but I wanted it as Twilight Sparkle. Can you do that for me? And then you could get after the fat commissions as well. So maybe you didn't sell as much as you wanted at the convention, but you make up for some of that later. Other questions? Vest.
All right, so I think a question that a lot of us, especially for starting out, is when do you know that you might be just popular enough that you will stay to guarantee you I have the potential to at least break even? I've just started out, and to me, I think every artist's problem is that I'm the worst critic of my own stuff. I don't see it. My friend is, and some of my followers see it. I understand the skill. And I just like, what are your thoughts on that?
So you see my boat? You're apparently rowing in it, because that's really the short answer is the best thing you can do for yourself is put yourself out there. Tweet your works in progress, post updates. Prolificity is your best friend, because when you're not super horse famous, that's really the best thing you can do for yourself. Because like before BronyCon, I abused the heck out of the BronyCon Twitter hashtag and the Twitter account. I think that person might be out for blood for me for all the stuff I put in that feed. But I mean, that's really the key, and your craft, and that's go to close friends who will give you constructive criticism. Be like, well, it's nice, but maybe you want to make your pony legs smaller, or the heads are a little big, or the necks are a little long, which is my big problem. When I draw, I like long necks in my ponies. But that's what the best thing you can do for yourself is get that constructive feedback and plaster your stuff. You never know where it's going to end up, and you go from there. And it's really when you feel ready, is the other part of it. Orange, Scootaloo, you. Oh, I'm sorry. It's I.
Yes.
Yeah.
For example, I know a guy who literally has the biggest pony tumbler out there, and he lost my trust. So it can happen without prepared.
For those who might maybe in the back who couldn't hear that so well, even popular people can have a bad con, and it can happen. There are factors like having all those vendors last year hurt all the vendors in general.
Yeah.
There was just too much competition, and it just was. A lot of people had a bad con.
it goes back into the retrospective area of recognizing what's in your control and what's out of your control.
Exactly. I think this young lady had her hand up for a while.
How did you guys become so good at sales?
Practice, practice, and practice. Trial and error, risk, and just going for it. I mean, I can't say it's all been good. There have been times where I felt kind of defeated, but it's getting back up on the horse and really, you know, learning from your mistakes and doing that retrospective. In business, they call it a lessons learned. That's when you take down all the things that you know went well and the things that you want to do again, and all the things that didn't go so well and that maybe you shouldn't do again. Like, we ordered a certain type of print that nobody wanted. And we're like, was it the artwork or is it just the type of print we got? And it turns out that it was that type of print. So we learned, okay, we're not going to order that next year and we won't bother with it. So it's a lot of practice. It's studying, it's doing research, and taking the risk and trying it out. You're welcome.
I just wanted to add to the answer to that one. You asked about specifically about breaking even. Minimize your costs. You will break even way faster if it costs next to nothing to get into the convention. Don't get the Wi-Fi for your table. You know, room with several people so that your hotel room is cheaper. Get smaller prints. Get smaller buttons. You know, if you cost your prints or whatever, that's gonna.
There's also sharing your table.
Yes.
Because I have at least one vendor who shared it with 5 other artists. And each one of them rotates in and out. The other ones sit in the back, but they all have their different artwork shared on the display. So if somebody says, I like that, that artist will come up and talk to them. Of course, it makes my job harder when I have to collect all that paperwork, but hey, it might have only cost them each $50
Okay.
for their share.
Lady in white.
For artists who do products other than art,
Mm-hmm.
not plushing, not art, not the traditional stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How does the application process, judging-wise?
Actually, that's better for you.
I know it's better.
It's better for me because I like to throw odd things in. So we have a lady this year who's selling. Basically, she took used clothing, cut it up, and made new clothing out of it. And she's like, I think she's in aisle 500 or 600. And she even said, I didn't expect to sell much, but the atmosphere, the fun I've been having, my first con, I'm testing the waters. So she only brought about a dozen items. And she said, even if I don't sell half of them, I'm making great contacts with people. I've already taken customs because the woman wanted something that I didn't have in size, but she liked the design and I measured her for it and I'm gonna make it for her. So I actually like odd things. I don't want 100 plushies or 100 artists or 100 posters. So if you actually said, I do carve things or something like that, it's interesting. You know, I like to put interesting things in, and sometimes I even put non-pony in because your friend might have came who hates ponies but likes anime. Like there's an artist today, he told me he had some Luigi posters. He's like, I bought 40 of them, I didn't care. They sold out. He's like,
Yeah.
I didn't expect, I thought this was a pony convention. I said, yeah, but not everybody cares about ponies.
And the flip side of that coin is also being prepared that if you are a bit different and you're not the main, you're not the McDonald's basically. I'm not calling
Yeah.
plushie makers McDonald's, but you get the gist when, you know, some people who travel want to go to McDonald's. It's familiar, it's something they know they like, and they're not willing to try something new. Artists who will not be named, you got traditional artists that often can feel like, you know, odd ducks against the more popular digital artists. So it's once again going with that risk and, you know, coming up with just a good product, a good attractive product that will really help you. My queen.
My question tends more to picking like staff brain. I've been to cons before as a vendor, not here, this is fabulous. But do you guys do anything to vendors who leave earlier than scheduled?
No, usually, I love vendors who leave early because as of now, I think I'm up to about 9 who have completely sold out.
Right.
They'll leave a stack of cards on their table and say, it was a great con, hopefully I'll see you next year. If you show up and say, oh, I'm gonna leave, but you've got an entire display,
That's what I mean.
that's where you're gonna run into a problem because we paid for union labor at the beginning of a con, at the end of the con. And if you decide, I need to leave now, and you want to pack all that up, you've got to pay the union to come in on overtime and do it.
My question is more, what could I say to other staff at other cons to convince them to do something, not necessarily something negative, but maybe like a table deposit to make other vendors stay?
Well, it's like this. I don't have a problem if you want to leave. Like, a lot of the vendors, they'll just stack their cards, they'll come by every day and refresh them and enjoy the rest of the weekend because they've sold out. And if you say, tell me you're leaving, because I hate it when I come by and I think, did I lose a vendor? So, tell me, I'm done, family emergency, I'm leaving, it was great being with you, but I have to go now. We have vendors who only want to work 1 or 2 days. So, it's just, communication is really the important part.
Okay, the important people in the back of the room have signaled that we are actually out of time. However, if you still have questions, we'll be available just outside to answer them for you. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and
Thank you very much. We
hope
hope you enjoyed.
Flood him with applications. Do it. I don't care if it hurts me. I don't care. Do it.
You're done.
I'm done. I'm over. I just signed my own death warrant.